Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today I'm covering Emily in Paris, Season 1, Episode 10, Cancel Couture. It's the last episode of the season and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So I can't wait to talk about it from start to finish. I want to hear your thoughts all about the season and what did you guys think and will there be a Season 2? I can't wait to find out. So let's get into it. Hey guys, I just want to take a second and say if you're enjoying this show, please check out my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Real Housewives Recaps, or check the comments below and I'll put a link. And for $1 a week, you can support my show and get 4 bonus episodes per month. I'm covering Scary Island, like the greatest season of Real Housewives of New York. So check it out. Thanks so much. So it's Paris Fashion Week, so everything is jam-packed. So that's why when we see Emily and Mindy, everybody is surrounding them and they're trying to get a seat and they're just trying to enjoy their wine and talk. Mindy, we got to learn more about with her singing lately, and turns out that the drag club that she went to offered her a job as an MC. She can't tell her nanny family about it because they're so conservative. And while Emily's there, she gets a text from Matthew that says, "Come right away." And since she's still involved in this scandal with Pierre and the fashion show from last episode, she just feels like she needs to run. Plus, I think she kind of has a thing for Matthew. So she goes to the restaurant where she thinks Matthew is, and it turns out he's on a boat right outside of it. So it's more of a date than a business outing. So she seems pretty excited about it. He takes her on a beautiful boat ride, and they end up getting on social media and posting pictures of champagne and boats. And they're talking about getting a fresh perspective. Pierre is still reeling and won't show his collection, even though the show's in 3 days. And they're just trying to take, I think it's just a mental time out. They end up over at his apartment. The view from his apartment is gorgeous. So Matthew and Emily kiss, and as they're kissing, he gets a phone call on his landline, and he said the only one that calls that is Pierre. So he has to go take it. Turns out he wants to cancel his show that's scheduled in for like 3 days, and Matthew's got to go talk him out of it. And so he said, please, it's to be continued. So Emily is like, oh gosh, I hope he doesn't cancel the show because that's her client. It's the next day at work, and I really don't understand Emily's fashion choices here. I mostly love her fashion. I hate this look so much. Sylvie's there. She's being a bitch. Antoine is trying to get Sylvie's attention, but she's avoiding him because he took his wife on the vacation that he was supposed to be taking her on. Woohoo! So much drama. I love Luke. He pops out of nowhere. And Luke ends up calling this meeting just to talk about his client to everybody. While everybody in the meeting is distracted, Emily is trying to get texts to see if there's any news. Is Pierre's show back on? And Antoine and Sylvie are having their own fight. And Luke's like, hello, is anybody paying attention? Well, Julian's like, oh my gosh, breaking news. Women's Wear Daily is saying that Pierre's show is canceled. And last night, Matthew said he was going to talk him out of it. So Matthew calls, and Sylvie understands what's going on and grabs Emily's phone away from her. What a bitch. She takes the phone and is like, I want answers. She tries to talk to Matthew directly, and he's saying the new collection is ready, but Pierre won't show it. He just keeps screaming Ringard about everything, which is what he called Emily. In earlier episodes. So Sylvie knows it's Emily's fault and says, please tell me if there's any change, and hangs up. So this part more than anything bothers me. So let's talk about this. Sylvie is blaming Emily for Pierre backing out of the fashion show. Pierre is backing out of the fashion show because he feels embarrassed because of what Gray Space did when they sprayed his dress with paint. Emily has done everything to try to talk to Pierre and change his mind about this. Sylvie doesn't care. She's being such a bitch, and she's still mad about Antoine and the whole wife thing, but she's taking it all out on Emily, and it's more than enough. I mean, it's too much. It's over the top. I don't like the writing for this character. I don't like this scene. It really bothered me. Sylvie ends up firing her. And she says, clear out your office and your desk and don't show your face here ever again. And it just is too much. We're supposed to root for Emily, and I know she has to have adversity, but Sylvie has been an ungrateful, horrible bitch the whole time. She doesn't support Emily. Emily's done a great job, getting publicity for all the clients, but Sylvie is just looking for a reason, and she feels like she's got it, and I think it's unfair. So Emily is very upset after all this. She's at her desk and thinking about having to leave, and Luke and Julian come over, and I love them. They're so sweet. They're like, what's the matter? And she said, Sylvie just fired me. And they said, oh, that's all? We thought someone died. They explained that it's impossible to fire someone in France. It takes months, even years, because of the bureaucracy. And they said, simply abandon your self-respect. Come in once or twice a week. Don't make eye contact with Sylvie. And it'll be okay. And she thanks them and is trying to make the best of this bad situation. I just love them as sidekicks on the show. I wasn't sure about Luke, but he's gotten even better this episode. Emily's walking home and she walks upon Camille and Gabriel. It's their favorite person to stumble upon. They're having this big, loud fight. And she's saying he's being selfish and he has to go to work, and she says, that's all you're good for. Well, Emily walks up and like, hey, are you okay? What's going on? And Camille says, he's moving. He's moving across the country. He's moving to Normandy, where he's from. He'll be moving next week, and he just told her. Camille's crying, and Emily's like, what? What is he thinking? And he wants to move across the country, and she thinks it's his way of breaking up with her. He's saying it's so he can buy a cheaper restaurant, so he can own his own place. So then we see Emily at Gabriel's place, and she says, you were never going to tell me? And he says the deal came together quickly. That's where he grew up. He always thought he would have a place in Paris, and then Emily cuts him off and says, I can't imagine you not living downstairs. I'm excited for you. Do you have a picture of the new place? And, Gabriel. So it sounds like he's going to go, and they're both broken and just sad. And, it's hard to see. They're packing up stuff and just really into each other, so it's hard to see this where he's moving out. Meanwhile, at her office, man, she has a lot of stuff going on right now, doesn't she? She's sneaking into the door, and Julian greets her, so she thinks she's in the clear. Well, guess who pops out? It's bitch. It's Sylvie. She's like, what are you doing here? I fired you. And Emily says, I still have clients. I have a duty to them, and until the paperwork is filed, I have to help them and the company. And she says, Julian, bring me the paperwork. And she says, I will handle your clients and try not to get in the way. Well, Luke comes up and helps her out and says he needs help with his client. It's not the right fit. So he looks over at Emily like, hello. So she says, oh, I volunteer. I'll take it. Sylvie says, fine. It will keep you busy until the termination is complete. So Luke really helped her out, as did Julian. So I love them. Julian brings her an invite. Gray Space has booked the spot that Pierre was going to have his fashion show. Such bullshit. And they sent him an invitation to watch. That's so messed up. So she calls Matthew, and he's explained that Pierre is manic and he wants to see you now. Pierre requested her personally, but Sylvie is so pissed about this, she says, no, I'm going too. So Emily and Sylvie arrive at Pierre's studio, and Matthew is there, and they're greeted by Pierre, and he's shockingly very happy to see Emily. It's just not what I expected at all. So he says he's been sleepwalking too long, but now he woke up. And he said Emily has inspired it, and he wants the world to see it immediately. So they're trying to say, well, you don't have enough stuff for a fashion show. He said, I'll make a dozen right now. We don't actually get to see the design yet, but he's very inspired and very excited. So Emily and Sylvie are walking back together, and Sylvie is just being such a bitch about it, saying, no desire will want to work with us after this event, and Gray Space has hijacked the location, so you've got to find us something else. So Emily's really trying to think and trying to come up with an idea here, and it's just so much on her. And I just ask, what does Sylvie do except for bitch and moan at Emily? So it's that evening, and Emily's trying to work on this event and trying to figure out what to do. She ends up getting a knock at the door, and it's Mindy. Mindy says that her family found out about the MC job and they're not pleased, so she ends up having to stay with Emily. So poor Emily's trying to get this work done, and meanwhile all her friends need her. Then Gabriel knocks. Oh, Gabriel. He brought her a going away present. It's his cast iron skillet that he made her omelets on. And they have such a sweet moment. He asks her about tomorrow night. It's his last night at the restaurant. And she asks about Camille, and Gabriel says we want different things, and we need to be free to do them, and we're going our own ways. And Emily says, so that's called a breakup, and I'm sorry. And Gabriel says, well, that's life. And he says, I'll see you at the restaurant if I can. So it's the next day, still Paris Fashion Week. They're at Pierre's old space, which is Gray Space's new place. It's confusing. They have a huge turnout of press, and it's a big event. Well, Emily has this idea and says this will work out. So she has Pierre come to this exact space, and he comes out to give interviews. And what happens? They're asking why he was canceled. He says, you're here to see Pierre. Well, a huge truck pulls out with huge speakers attached. It's a garbage truck. These models get off with fashion is over. And it's crazy, it's tacky, but it's eye-catching. And it gets all the press. And everyone is screaming. And they're all chanting Pierre Cardot. And very excited. Gray Space is pissed. He starts wagging his finger at them, and it's a great moment. So it's saved, yay! They all celebrate the success at Gabriel's restaurant. She tagged the restaurant in the post, so now Gabriel's restaurant is super busy, while Antoine and his wife walk in. Sylvie's kind of drunk, says he's full of promises, and just she gets up to move. Well, the wife comes over to talk to Emily and says, I hear you're in charge of Antoine's account now. That's good. I think you'll be a much better fit for my husband. And Emily says, well, right, professionally. Wife says, whatever you want to call it, I approve. That's so weird. So she implies that she knew about Sylvie, not into that, but she's okay with Emily banging him. So the rest of the group leaves. They say goodbye. And this part really bothered me because Matthew is clearly into Emily, and Emily seems kind of into him, but they're doing all this at Gabriel's restaurant. She's been pining over Gabriel the whole time, so much so that she's willing to jeopardize her friendship with Camille for it. But yet, Matthew comes in the picture, and they're like flirting right in the middle of Gabriel's restaurant. And it's so awkward, and I don't like Matthew so much, and Gabriel's saying goodbye to everybody. He explains the situation to Antoine that it's too expensive for it to buy the restaurant, but it explains the offer from his girlfriend's family. And Antoine totally understands it. He says, yeah, that's too complicated. That his wife's family invested when he just started, so he completely understands. And Gabriel's saying, I don't think there's anything left for me in Paris anyway, while he gives a glance over at Emily. Oh, Emily. Emily and Matthew go up to tell Gabriel that they think Matthew's saying it's a great place. And Matthew ends up mentioning the weekend. He had asked Emily to go to Saint-Tropez to celebrate. So he mentions it to Gabriel. So Gabriel already feels bad. He's saying, thank you for making my last night in Paris so memorable. Emily says, I was just returning the favor. They say, good night, Gabriel. And she says, good luck. And Matthew walks her out, and it's just such a shitty way to say goodbye. And I thought, no, it cannot come to this. They cannot end it here. But don't worry, they don't. She goes back to her apartment alone. She's drinking, and she's thinking about the situation. She goes out to her terrace and opens the door, and what does she see? Gabriel. He's lifting the chair. She's like, oh, hello. So she decides, you know what? that's it. So she goes back down, she pounds on the window, and she thinks he's gone. Well, he comes around the corner, and she's like, I didn't want that to be the last time we saw each other. I'm going to miss you so much. And they kiss. And it's so sweet. They finally get this time together. He's finally single. They're kissing. And they end up back at his place. So, yeah. So all this happens. It's really hot. Hello, Gabriel without a shirt. And we see her beautiful shoe here. And that's it. So they talk, and they both admit that they've both thought about this for a very long time, and just how hard it is that he's leaving, and he's saying, it's just Normandy, and she says, I don't think I should see you again, and they decide to go at it one more time, and what a night. The next morning, Emily's at work, and Sylvie says, about our conversation, I've decided not to file your paperwork. And she says, if you remain at Sevier, I'm not going to be as easy on you going forward. Oh, has that been her going easy? Oh my gosh. So that's how that ends. Sylvie's a bitch. Nothing really changes there. I love Julian. I love this face he's making. And then we see Luke come into frame too. And I love that they helped her out and got her to where she could stay. So Emily's staying in Paris. So Emily's walking home after work, and he's saying he booked the 6 p.m. train on Friday to Saint-Tropez. And we don't know what she's going to say, but she ends up saying, can't wait, smiley face. She ends up back at Gabriel's restaurant, and who does she run into? Antoine. So she's like, what? And he says he's there for business. Gabriel comes outside, and they explain that Antoine's buying the restaurant. Gabriel belongs here. He's too talented to be banished to Normandy. And Emily's like, so you're staying in Paris? And Gabriel says, don't worry, you can keep the omelet plan. So they're so happy, and it seems like it's going to work out. And then all of a sudden, Emily gets a text from Camille. I just heard from Gabriel. He's staying in Paris. Can we talk? Oh my gosh. And that's how the whole series ends. So we don't know what that Can We Talk is about. Does she know? Does she know about her and Gabriel? Oh my gosh. Such a good show. So Gabriel is staying in Paris. Camille might know what's going on, but probably not. So much. Mindy's been kicked out of her house and has to live with Emily, so they'll have to figure that out. Emily is still on at her job, but Sylvie's going to be more of a bitch. I don't think that's possible. So much good stuff. Such a good season. I love it. I really do. I thought it was a fantastic series, and I hope there's a season 2. There's talk that there's going to be. They can't end it like that, right? I mean, it's gotta keep going. So good. I loved it. I loved watching every episode with you guys. I love recapping. I love talking about it. I love your comments about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Leave me comments below on this one. I love reading them. You can comment here. You can comment on my Twitter at Real Recaps. And I thank you guys so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.